Hi, I'm Paul. Thanks for having a look at my video. In this video I'm going to have a look at PowerApps. We're going to be working with galleries and we're going to be looking at how we can make a gallery directly updatable. So your gallery shows your information from a list. So for example, I've got a SharePoint list here that we're going to be using a little bit later on. And this has got the employee name, whether they have a bonus, what type of employee, what department. And maybe what we want to be able to do is to change some of these details directly within a gallery on PowerApps. So the normal workflow in PowerApps, of course, is you've got a gallery of your items, and then you click on one of those items and it takes you through to another screen which shows you the detail. And then on that screen there's an option to click to edit it, so it takes you to another screen where you do your editing. And you know, that's perfectly fine. In many cases that's what you want, but it's nice to have flexibility and choices. So if you do want to directly modify your data that's displaying in your gallery in PowerApps without having to jump to different screens, then this video is going to show you how to do it. As I say, this is the data that we're going to be working with. The data is of different data types, so if I just jump into quick edit here, you'll be able to see. We're going to have a look at what's involved in updating a straightforward text field. We'll have a look at what's involved in updating a yes/no field. We'll have a look at what's involved in updating a choice field. So remember, choice fields in SharePoint are the ones where you enter a static list of choices that the user can select. And this one is a lookup field, and a lookup field lets you, similarly to the choice field, choose from a list of options, but rather than you typing in a static list, this goes and gets its list of options from another list within SharePoint. So I've got another list here called department, and there we can see there's the list that is available for me to choose from when I'm in the main gallery update demo list. Okay, so that's what we are going to be doing. I'm using SharePoint for the back end for this. You could be using Azure SQL DB or other data sources. In fact, for these choice and lookup fields, they're a little bit painful to deal with in PowerApps. So if you are using SQL Azure or similar, then you're going to actually find the updating of these fields a little bit easier to manage. So let's jump into PowerApps. I've got a screen on here which I created earlier. We're going to do the whole thing from scratch, but just to show you, this is what we are working towards. We're working towards a screen where we've got a gallery showing all of our items, and we can actually modify our items directly from within the gallery, and when we modify those items, those changes will be saved back into our SharePoint list. So no need to jump from this screen to another screen in order to do our edits. So let's start from the beginning. Let's put in a gallery. Now I have actually added my data sources already, so let's just choose that we want our gallery update demo list from SharePoint, and then I'm going to start adding some labels in here. So pop in 3 labels, grab the first label, and what I'm going to do is we'll just make this item ID. It might be useful for us to have that visible just for these demo purposes later. You don't have to have it on your final solution. And we've got another one here. Let's pop that over here, and we will make this one linked to bonus. Okay, there we are. So we've got our fields displaying. Just tidying things up ever so slightly. So we've got ID, number, and the name, and then true or false for whether the person gets the bonus. I'm not going to waste time doing formatting and putting headings across the top or anything like that, so just bear with me for that, but it saves you time, me messing around adding that sort of stuff. Okay, so there we've got our normal gallery, but we want to make this gallery updatable. I'm going to start with the bonus to begin with. And I'm showing it here as a label. I'm going to leave the label on just for a moment so that we can double check all the logic and everything is working correctly. But I'm also going to put in a toggle control, because for things like yes and no, a toggle control is the perfect thing to use for that. So I've now added a toggle control into my gallery. So let's call this toggle bonus, and they're all just displaying off at the moment. This isn't linked in any way to my SharePoint list right now, so let's go ahead and link it. So we'll start by showing the correct information that already exists in our list. So I'm going to set the default value of this to simply this item dot bonus. Fantastic. So the toggle control and the yes no field type in a SharePoint list, they integrate really nicely. So we can just do a straightforward this item dot bonus to set it to on or off according to what our underlying data is. So that was nice and easy. And we can flick these backwards and forwards, but that's not going to have any effect on our SharePoint list at all, because all we've done is said, look, the default value of this should be what's come from the SharePoint list. We haven't done anything yet to send any changes back to SharePoint. So let's do that. So I will start by using the on check and the on uncheck properties. So when I check this, when I turn this on, I want something to happen. I want this to modify the data for this row in SharePoint. So we can do that with something called the patch command. So the patch command is a way that we can send data to SharePoint, or whatever our data source happens to be, without having to go through a form and doing the form submit. So we can send our data directly. So you'll see the arguments coming up here. So what's the source? Well, the source is our list in SharePoint. So our list name was Gallery Update Demo. What record do we want to update? Okay, well, remember that in a gallery where you've linked your gallery directly to your SharePoint list, we can just say this item is the record. And then we have to say what we want to update. Now, we don't have to specify everything in that list and say what we want to set the value to. We only need to put in the value for the things that we're actually changing. And we do that by sending it one of these sort of array type constructs. And we say this is the name, the field name. So this was our list. This is the field name or column name bonus. What we want to set it to, well, this is on the on check event. So we can set it to be true. Close off our curly brace, close off our bracket. And there we are, job done. And what we will also do is do the same thing, but we'll tie this one to the uncheck event. Oopsie. There we go. But of course, when we're unchecking it, we would want to set the value to false instead. So let's have a little look at what that does. So I am going to change the value. So the value at the moment is that Jimmy is the first on the list, and yes, he is getting a bonus. I'm afraid we're going to take Jimmy's bonus away. So I'm going to click on the button. Now you can see there towards the top of the screen, the system is processing. So it's going to process. Once it's processed the patch operation, it will refresh. So I haven't put any refresh instruction in. That happens naturally. And when we go into our SharePoint list, of course I've got to hit the reload button. So Jimmy did have a bonus. In PowerApps we changed that to no bonus. The patch command has run, so now when we refresh the list in SharePoint, no, Jimmy hasn't got his bonus anymore. Okay, all well and good. So let's just clear this field out of the way. We don't need that anymore. So what if we want to change the name of the person or change a text box? So let's do a text box example. At the moment this is a normal label control, and I can't type in a label control when we're running, so I can't click in there and change any of the text. So what I need to do is I need to take this control out, and I'm going to replace it with a text input control, because a text input can both show us a value from our data and allow us to make modifications as well. So let's just give ourselves some space there. So again, the default for this is going to be this item, and it's the title column that's holding the person's name. So there we are, the names have all popped in. And we could go into the onChange event of this one, and we can do another patch. Actually, before I put the patch in, I'm just going to name this field txt employee name. There we are. And I'm going to say I want to patch. We're patching our gallery update demo. The record we are modifying is this record, and inside our curly braces the field we're going to modify is actually called title in SharePoint. So title colon, and then what we want to change it to. So that's going to be my txt employee name, and remember we've got to reference the text property for that one. So there we go. Excuse me. So let's run this now. Let's change the name of Jimmy. He's now James, and that should have fired. Let's have a little look, make sure that it did. So the employee name was Jimmy, and now the employee name is James. Fantastic. Now there is something there that you want to watch out for from a usability perspective, and that is the onChange event fires every time I hit a key. Okay, it's not when I've completed typing in that box. So each time I press a key, so James A, if we go to our SharePoint list, it's James A. I didn't click outside of that box, just type the character B. That will be sending the change through to the SharePoint list. Oops, should be. There we are, James AB. So it took a second, but it did send that through. So that might not be exactly how you want this to work. Depend on the circumstances, that might be okay. My concern there would be that unlike a checkbox, a toggle button, where if you press it by accident, it's easy enough to put that right. You just press it again, and it's going to go back to what it was before. If you've accidentally overtyped some text, well, bang, that's now gone. Even though I haven't clicked to another row or even clicked to another control on the same row, that data is now overwritten in my SharePoint list, so I've got nothing to refer back to. I don't know what it was before. I accidentally typed over the wrong box. So let's have a little look at something we can do to try to prevent that. I'm just going to put these back to as they were. There we go. That's another thing that you may see as well, because the patch was still processing and refreshing from my first change. My second change was starting to get sort of lost in the mix there. Okay, so this will also help us to resolve that issue. So I'm going to add a little check mark to my solution, and what we can do is we can say, look, rather than doing these patches every time you change something here, okay, only do it when we click on this button, and we can run the patch for the toggle as well. So if you want to be able to make multiple changes to one line and then click the tick to save those changes, then we can do it this way. So we can just select that. Remember, we can run multiple lines of code by putting a semicolon between each one. And this patch is saying, okay, set the bonus to false. Well, that might not be what we want, because this is on the on the click of this tick rather than when we're moving this toggle backwards and forwards. So we don't always want to set this toggle, set the bonus to false. What we want to do is set it to whatever the TGL bonus value is. There we go. So now I can actually get rid of these patches from the toggle. So remember, just hitting the toggle is, I think, brilliant UI for things like a to-do list or something, where that's the only thing that you're changing on the row. But if there are multiple things that you might be changing on that row, then perhaps you're better off not firing off that set of changes until the user has clicked the tick to confirm that they're happy with all of the changes that they're making. So here we are. Let's now give this a try. So James has had a complete change of name this time. He's going to be William, and he is going to get a bonus. And now I'm going to click on the tick. Oops, apologies. I think I left some of the toggle code on here. On check. Did I get rid of it on uncheck? Oh, I did. Okay. Ah, sorry, I didn't get rid of this little bit of code. There we are. So I don't need that bit anymore. Let's do this again. So William, no bonus. Click the tick and just check in my SharePoint list that those changes have come through. So there we are, William, no bonus. Great. Now, something I don't like about this at the moment is that the tick is always visible whether or not I have made a change. So we can sweeten the user interface a little bit more very easily by going to the visible property of the tick. And I only want to make this tick visible if I have changed these options. So I'm going to use the if statement, and I'm going to say if, what did I call it, txt employee name, if the text in there does not match this item title, then I want the tick to show, otherwise I don't. So let's just show that working, and then we'll add it for the toggle as well. So I'm going to change William here. As soon as I start changing it, change it to Bill, then I've got the tick there saying, look, you've changed this. Do you want to commit your edit? to the database. If I change it back to William again, because that matches what's already in the system, then the tick has disappeared. So that's working very nicely. So what we can do is we can just build this up with each of the controls that we might be able to edit. So what we can do is we can put in here, instead of false, we can put in another logical test. So in this case it's going to be, is our TGL bonus value different to this item dot bonus? And again, if it is, make it true, otherwise let's make it false. So just very quickly, you can see here on this if construct, you can have your logical test, what to do if it's true, then another logical test, what to do if it's true, and then you could have many more, and then finally what to do if all those logical tests fail. So now if I change my toggle, again I've got my tick appearing. So that's great. Let's do a little bit of messing around with that. Let's quickly put it in this mode so I can do that, and that has changed, so I've got a tick, I can do that, and the toggle has changed, so I've got a tick. I could change both items, you know, and I've still got a tick. Now one thing to remember though is that as soon as I click on one of these ticks, my patch commands are going to fire, and when you've run a patch, it then does a refresh, and when it does a refresh, I'm going to lose the changes that I made to the other rows that I've got. So let's do a little bit of tweaking there. So what we might want to do there is we might want to make it so that our tick is only available for the selected item. That would be one solution. It's not perfect, but so if this is the selected row, then perform my test to see whether I should show the tick or not. Otherwise, just don't show the tick. So let's see how that looks. So the tick is showing because I've changed that piece of information. If I click into another row, then that tick has disappeared. And now I've just got the tick for this row. Still not a perfect UI. Probably what we would want to do is to have a little warning as well. So very similar logic to the tick, but something that would just say, if you are moving away, if this is no longer the selected row, but there are changes, then you'd want to put a little warning on here that says, you know, you'd better save your changes, otherwise they're going to be lost. So I won't bother putting that on now because this is starting to take a little bit of time, but I'm sure you can see how you can do that in a similar way to the tick. Just put a little warning on there so that if they've changed the row and they've then selected something else, that there's a bit of text that comes up there to say, hey, you know, save your changes if you want to keep them. Okay, so let's just get our tick to show on here again, and I'm going to go to my on select, because what we can see now very clearly is every time we run a patch, we're also doing a refresh of the data. So in the background, we may be doing sort of this patch and a refresh, and then this patch and a refresh, and it seems to happen all sort of asynchronously, so it might not be too much of an issue, but what we could do to try and make sure that we're not going to get any performance issues at all is to use a single patch statement that changes 2 columns rather than a patch statement for each column that we want to change. So we can do that just by specifying both of the fields that should be changed in the one patch statement. Right. I think what I'll do is I'll just give myself a refresh button. There we are, to refresh gallery update demo. There we are. So when we do a refresh, there it goes, then that can also act a bit like a cancel button. So if you've made changes and you don't want to make the change, so remember we were saying, oh look, I've made a change but that's not what I intended. The user now has the option not to click the tick, and then if they want to get their data back to as it was before, then they can just hit the refresh button and the screen all goes back to as it should be. Okay, so let's have a little look at the drop-down controls then. Let's move that out of the way, give ourselves plenty of space in here, and let's just switch on the tick icon so that I can move it right out of the way, give ourselves some space. So let's add a drop down. Here we go. So this first drop down is going to be for my employee type. So you should be getting the idea with this now. The first thing to do is to set the default value. So that's going to be this item dot employee type. And whenever you're dealing with lists of things in SharePoint or PowerApps, you've got to put the sorry, not visible, value. You've got to say value, specify it's the value that you want. Okay, now that hasn't actually shown me the values yet. So remember, our values are part-time, full-time and contract. And it hasn't done that because it can only show you the value if the value matches one of the things in the list. Now there is nothing, well, I say there's nothing in this list. What's in the list at the moment is the standard demo data that you get whenever you create the drop-down control. So at the moment, what's in the list is drop-down sample, which is just the numbers 1, 2 and 3. Of course, part-time does not match 1, 2 or 3, so you don't see it. You're just getting the number 1 in there. It's just defaulting to the first item that it can actually show you, because what we've set in our default, which for this one would be full-time, it can't display. So only things, only options that are within the drop-down can be displayed. So we've got to get our options into this drop-down. So how are we going to do that? Okay, now let's see what options we want. So let's go into our list settings. And for this list, this is our choice list. This is employee type. So here are my settings. Now, I've not found any way of being able to pull out that list of available options from SharePoint into PowerApps. So we're going to have to manually put that in there. So let's do that now. I'll come back to that in a second. So we can use the table command because everything which is in a drop down has to have an ID as well as a value. So using the table command to assign each option in there both an ID and a value. So now we've got full-time, part-time and contractor in there. And I'm going to hit the refresh button. So whenever you've been kind of editing these drop downs, I've found you have to hit the refresh button to kick things off. And now we've got part-time and full-time showing on here. So now my list full-time, part-time, contractor, and so when I try and set the default item, and the default for this row comes back as part-time, well, that's something that matches in the list, and so it can be displayed. Only if the value that I pull back matches in the list can it be displayed in the drop-down. Now that can give us a headache or two. If we just look at our list for a moment, our demo data, I believe one of the people in our demo data is actually marked as contract. Whereas in here, it's this line here, Jane is not coming in as contract, it says full-time instead. So why is that? Okay, so the things have to match absolutely 100%. And in SharePoint, our list of options are full-time, part-time and contract. And the list that I have put in this table says contractor instead of contract. So that doesn't match. And what's happening then is I'm just getting the first item from the drop-down. So if I set this to contract so that it will match what's in my SharePoint list, remember to do a refresh. Now that information is coming in correctly. So it's something to be really careful about. You really need to make sure, if you're using these choice lists, that whatever you've got in SharePoint for your choice list and whatever you've got in PowerApps for your available options for your drop-down, they have to be an exact match. Okay, any even slight deviation will mean that you just end up defaulting the first value, which is likely to be the wrong one. So and remember, you have to hit this select every time, sorry, this refresh every time as well. So what you could do is you could have an additional line for your drop down, which could say something like error or you know, select option, and then any time you've got data that doesn't match, so let's change our contract to contractor again so that we're forcing a mismatch between our available options and what's in our list. So now Jane, who should be contract, she's come up with select option, so the first choice that's there. It's not ideal. I don't really like it very much, but it's one thing that you could try to do to try to get around that particular issue. My favoured solution would be, instead of using these choice columns, use a lookup column instead, because if we use a lookup column, then we can populate our drop down with the items from the options that are available in the lookup list. So let's have a little look at that. So in here we've got a lookup list which is for our employee departments. So let's go ahead, let's just move this out of the way a little bit, and let's add another drop down. And then when I've got these both in, I'll show you how to do the patch command with these as well, because that's not obvious with SharePoint. With, as I say, SQL Server or other systems, it's a bit easier, but SharePoint it's a little bit tricky. Okay, so let's just quickly do this one. So again, this is going to be this item dot employee department. yeah, employee department dot value we have to use, and then in our apologies, I'm in the items column, so I should be in our default value. Our default value is this item employee value, and then in our items we can just point it to our department list, which I called department, and remember to do a refresh on here. What I've got to do as well now is I've got to make sure that we refresh our department list as well. There we go, let's refresh that, and we're not quite there yet. What have I missed? Let me go back to my previous screen. So this item employee department, what did I miss in items? Okay, seems to prefer that syntax. Let's give that a try. Bear with me. Okay, so that is showing up now. I think that's a bit of a bug in PowerApps. What I did was set it to department.title, and then once it got that much, it seemed to be happy for me just to set it to department. Not quite sure why that's having such an issue, but let's hit the refresh on it again. There we are. So yeah, so if it's a lookup, then it's a lot easier because you're not having to try to make sure that your list of things in PowerApps matches your list of things in SharePoint, and you can easily imagine what's going to happen with this type of choice list. Someone's going to go in at some point and change what the available options are in the SharePoint list, and then that's not going to match what's in your Power App, and you're going to find that the two things are out of sequence, and you're going to have an issue. So as I say, I would recommend going with the lookup fields. And now of course what we need to do is we need to be able to push this data up to Power Apps with our patch command. So let's have a little look at how we can do that. Perhaps we'll just do the visible bit first of all. So let's make sure that this shows any time we have modified either of those drop downs. So we're just going to carry on with the same sort of pattern that we've built up already. So this item dot employee type dot value, if that does not match, I haven't named my drop downs, it was drop down 8 though. Drop down 8 dot selected dot value. Then I want this to be true, so let's just hit the refresh on here to clear out. Make sure that I selected the right drop down. This is why it's a good idea to name things. But drop down 8 is our employee type and drop down 9 is our employee department. So I'll just carry on for now. So our next logical test is, does this item dot employee department dot value, has that been modified? So is that different from our drop down 9 dot selected dot value If it is, then make sure we're showing that tick, otherwise don't bother. So here we are, let's just hit the refresh again. Oh, I've got something not quite right in there. Ah, I've missed out my true there, that's better. Okay, so now it should be the case if I change any one of these fields, the tick should appear. If I change it back to what it was originally, then it will disappear again, letting me know that I haven't actually modified anything on this line. There we go, fantastic. And now we are just going to have to set up the patch command so that we're patching through the data from these two drop downs. So this is a little bit more involved, as I say. So when we send the data from the when we want to do the patch command and update the values which are in these choice and lookup fields, what we've got to send is not a single value. We've got to send something in the format of a table. We've got to send several values through to it so that it knows how to, or SharePoint knows how to deal with that information. So you won't have this problem with SQL Azure, but with SharePoint, this is what you've got to do. And I got the information on how to do this from this very good blog, which I will post the link to in the description of this video. So what we're going to do is we are going to say now that we also want to do a patch on the employee type. Just checking my syntax for a moment, bear with me. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't need those curly braces on those ones. Probably won't make any difference, but let's try and keep it consistent with what I've got in my notes. So the employee type, what we're going to have to set this to, and here we do need another curly brace. So normally we just say, look, this is the field name and this is the value. This time we're saying this is the field name, but this value is in itself an array of values. So we have to specify an ID, and I don't think the ID matters too much when it's a choice field rather than a lookup field. So my choice field was the first one of those I put in, which was Dropdown 8 dot selected dot ID, and then we want to set the value as again Dropdown 8 dot selected dot value. So we've got to give it the ID, or an ID at least, and the value. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to give it the data type as well. So I'm going to copy paste this in from that very good blog that I showed you a moment ago. And so that's what we've got to put in there for the OData type. So when we're sending or patching, using patch to send information up to a SharePoint choice or lookup column, we need to be sending it not just a value, we need to be sending it an ID, the value, and telling it what sort of data we are sending. So that should give me the employee type. Let's also have it do the employee department as well. So let's do the same thing again for employee department. So this is exactly the same. The only thing we need to change, in fact we'll do a copy and paste to show how much it is the same. The only thing we need to change is, of course, the drop down that we are referencing, because the employee department is based on drop down 9. Okay, let me just pull this down a bit, double check my syntax, because we've got quite a lot of stuff going on here at the moment. So we've got our patch command, and then here we've got our list of things that we want to update. So title and bonus we know is fine. Then we've got the employee type, and we've got to wrap that stuff inside our curly braces. Then we want another comma to then specify the next field, which is employee department. Curly braces to end that, and then another set of curly braces to close off the curly braces that we've got at the top. And I've got something not entirely right there. Hold on while I look into that. Okay, and what I've noticed is the ID, said that they were both the same, but they're not quite. It seems the ID for employee department needs to be lowercase. Okay, so make ID lowercase, because that seems to work in both situations. If I make ID uppercase here, it gets a bit upset with me. So make sure ID is in lowercase. So another little tip there that I didn't realize until I made that typo. So here we are. So we're going to be doing our patch. So these are nice and straightforward. So the bonus and the title are very easy, because we can just send directly the value that we want to be uploaded into SharePoint. With these drop downs, remember I did warn you that they were a bit awkward. With the drop downs, we need to send through not just the value, we have to send through an ID, which has to be capital I lowercase d, it seems, and we have to also send through what the data type is, and that data type is this Microsoft Azure Connected to SharePoint SP List Expanded reference. So you're never going to remember all of that, so have a look at the link that I leave in the description of the video. So here we are. Sorry that wasn't as smooth as it could have been, but if I make the mistakes here, then hopefully you won't make the mistakes on yours. So let's try and make a change then. So let's change, let's first of all, just refresh our SharePoint list so that we know that we're up to date. And what we're going to do is we're going to change Bill into William. He is going to have a bonus. He's going to be made full-time, and he's going to be a member of accounts. So William, bonus, full-time accounts. Let's hit the button. So that's patched, it's refreshed, the tick has disappeared, because now my data which is in my form is matching my data which is in my SharePoint list, and we hit the refresh, and we should see we've got William with a bonus, full-time, in accounts. Phew. Right. Okay, so that's that. You can make your gallery controls updatable, and we've seen that you can do that whether they're based on text, whether they're based on a yes/no field, whether they're based on a choice type field in SharePoint, or whether they're based on a lookup type field in SharePoint. So I hope that's been useful. Go away, have a play, see how you get on, and let me know in the comments whether that worked for you and whether there's anything else you want me to run over. Okay, thanks for your time, and bye-bye.